Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be celebrating the 41st anniversary of the liberation of Sinai. Now, April the 25th of 1982 marked the day of the full liberation of Sinai, and we're going to be focusing on the peninsula and the strategy and the developments that will be taking place and are currently taking place now. And joining us here tonight in the studio to shed more light on the strategy and the developments, we're joined by Dr. Mohamed Roshdy, the economic and banking expert and also a lecturer at Cairo University. Dr. Roshdy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and good evening for you and our audience. And I would like to greet all the Egyptian citizens for the liberation of Sinai, the 41st anniversary of returning back Sinai.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roshdy. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our discussion with Dr. Roshdy, let's check out this report regarding President Sisi directing to formulate a strategy regarding the development path of the Sinai Peninsula, and we'll be right back.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has followed up on existing as well as future programs aiming to push ahead efforts of community development for citizens in Sinai as part of the national strategy for comprehensive development of the peninsula. President el-Sisi was briefed on key efforts of community development for citizens in Sinai, which includes boosting social protection initiatives, providing job opportunities for achieving economic empowerment based on medium, small and micro enterprises in fields that enjoy comparative advantage, as well as improving health services. The head of state has given directives for the formulation of an advanced and integrated path that state be aiming to follow in implementing the Sinai development strategy. President Sisi emphasized the state's efforts in the implementation of the Sinai development strategy, which must aim at formulating an advanced and integrated development path that encompasses the promotion of investment in human capital with a view of supporting the Sinawi society at all levels in collaboration and coordination amongst various relevant authorities in the state. Meanwhile, the president attended in Ismailia a ceremony for the inspection of the equipment used in Sinai development and reconstruction processes, during which he said the state has chosen to combat terrorism in parallel with developing Sinai, and underlined that no one can separate Sinai from Egypt. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said the state's most important projects in Sinai over the last 30 years are the project of the Port Said zone and the industrial zone, as well as the ongoing venture of land reclamation along Sheikh Gaber Canal. These projects have not been finalized for several reasons and impediments since the 1990s. Madbouli referred to a survey conducted by the Cabinet Information Center in 2010, in which about 63% of Sinai people voted that water shortages was behind the problems that they faced. Another 50% attributed their problems to lack of transportation and connection with other parts in the country, and 25% complained about a lack of education, electricity and health services. The Prime Minister said about 610 billion Egyptian pounds have been investment in development projects in Sinai. Within this context, 5 tunnels at the cost of 35 billion Egyptian pounds have been erected under the Suez Canal alongside the already established tunnel of Martyr Ahmed Hamdi. He noted 7 floating bridges were also built at the cost of 1 billion Egyptian pounds. For his part, the head of Engineering Authority, Ahmed Al-Azazi, said the decision to develop Sinai was taken in tandem with efforts to eradicate forces of terrorism there. As of June 30th, 2014, the authority was tasked with carrying out a number of development projects. The authority was responsible to carry out 460 projects in Sinai at a total cost of 480 billion Egyptian pounds, covering all spheres of development.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Starting off our discussion with Dr. Roshdy. Now, sir, 41st anniversary of the liberation of Sinai. Now, obviously, the Sinai Peninsula in specific has a very special place in the hearts of all Egyptians, and a very special place in the history of Egypt throughout the ages and the centuries. Now, looking at it now, 41 years later, now obviously the Sinai Peninsula has been really the focus of Egypt in Egypt's modern history, especially over the past 10 or 20 years. A lot of obstacles, a lot of challenges, but Egypt has been successful in overcoming them, and now it has a huge task of really implementing a huge development strategy there. How would you review, before we get into the details, how would you assess the developments taking place within the Sinai Peninsula in recent history?
Actually, I would like to start with defining the location of Sinai. Especially, it has a strategic location. It links three continents: Africa, Asia, and Europe. And this strategic place let this part of our country, a lot of neighbors are focusing to benefit from this location. Egypt, the last decade actually, and the government, and especially the President Fattah al-Sisi, started to focus more and more on this part, which is we have a lot of things to work and develop. Starting doing mega projects like Suez Canal development, health, hospitals, mining, renewable energy, and this is aligned with our strategic vision for sustainability for our 2030 Egypt agenda, which is the most important and the strategic thing for us. And if you would like to have a strong country, you have to ensure that all boundaries, all peninsula actually, under control, the government, and we have a strategic extension for it with our neighbors, and we can capitalize on it to have mega projects and bring more FDI. And nowadays, that the government and the presidential leadership is focusing to do such amazing things, in my humble opinion.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned many things that are quite synonymous with development now here in Egypt. I mean, many projects including renewable energy, mega national projects, also a lot of electrical projects taking place in Sinai. And it all preceded a security concern over the past years that Egypt has been successful in overcoming, ending any sort of extremist or terrorist elements there. Now, Sinai Peninsula is quite a fertile land in terms of opportunities and investments. And you've also mentioned the Suez Canal and the developments taking place around the Suez Canal. And the industrial zones and the economic zones. How challenging is it to really work on financing all these developmental projects in light of the economic crisis that is really affecting the whole world, and at the same time trying to attract foreign investors and trying to encourage the private sectors here in Egypt to invest in Sinai Peninsula?
Actually, the presidential leadership and the government has strategic vision concerning this part of our country. As far as I recall, there is a huge investment in this part, which is reached, as far as I recall, 610 billion Egyptian pound in mega projects. Actually, the main objective from these projects to have a lot of things. One of them to create job opportunities, to let this part of our country link it to the entire country, and to gain actually the loyalty and to capitalize on developing and enhancing our GDP. You hit a nerve actually when you are saying to bring FDI or investments. Actually, this is one of the most important things and crucial things that a lot of countries are competing to get more FDI. Actually, and as you know, and our audience, we have a report which is called the competitiveness report. When an investor is coming to any country, he's trying to read this report actually to know a lot about the country that he would like to invest his money or her money in this country. One of the most important things that the government is focusing on this report, and as far as I recall, our ranking in this report, it jumped like 20 places, something like that. And this is one of the most positive signals to the global community to bring FDI. You can realize easily that we are working on a lot of things. You hit a nerve by the agriculture part. As you know, and our audience, the GDP structure is consisted of three main parts: the industrial part and the agricultural part, and the third one, which is the service part. Actually, and if you would like to build a stronger economy, you have to invest on two things, in my humble opinion: education and health, to enhance what I'm saying, the GDP structure. I would like, this is a great link. When you invest in health and education, you are investing in the Egyptian citizen actually. And the Egyptian citizen, in my humble opinion, is the main pillar to build this country. And one, if you asked me, I believe if we have a fortune here in Egypt, the human beings, this is our fortune. And we have, or our wealth, and we have to capitalize on it. First, the government gave a priority for the education, and as far as I recall, there are a lot of universities are launched or opened 2 years or 3 years ago, in addition to a lot of schools. In addition to, this is in the part of education, and they are trying to develop the education level there and to have a rank for those universities. In addition to a lot of schools, to let the education one of the main pillars to build on it. In addition to opening a lot of hospitals, in addition to a lot of health care centers in this part, those two things are the main pillars to focus on our GDP structure. And then after that, the government focused on one of the most important things, which is the agricultural part. Let me say it, if you couldn't own your food, you will not own your decision. And this is one of the, in my humble opinion, one of the most strategic decisions that the government and presidential leadership took it to do a lot of, to reclaim a lot of lands there, to have what they are calling a strategic store for our foods. And we used up the land to have a strategic store and to have to be eligible to take our decision easily because we are owning our food. And this is reflected on the first part of our GDP structure, which is the agriculture part. In addition to the second part, which is the industrial part. Nowadays, the government is trying to give a lot of incentives for any investor, despite the fact if he is local investor or foreigner investor, they are trying to give a lot of incentives, and they are trying to facilitate establishing companies and factories in this place, and they are giving them a lot of waivers. And as far as I recall, one of the most important things that the Prime Minister did it with coordination with all ministries, which is the golden license.
Yes.
And this is positively reflect on overall the country and Sinai. You can easily find a lot of companies there, in addition to which is reflected on the industrial parts and the infrastructure. You can see easily a lot of mega projects, infrastructure, using one of the most important things, which is the sustainable or renewable energy. This is aligned with our 2030 vision to have a sustainable energy and to decrease our carbon footprint. Thank you. Carbon footprint. And this is a global trend. And by the way, we hosted COP27 as you know, and our audience, we hosted it. And it's not a random decision to let Egypt host this one of the most important events globally, which is focused on sustainable energy. This is due to our main role, or our role in doing a sustainable financing, using sustainable energy and decreasing our carbon footprint. And these things reflected on the industrial part. And it created a lot of jobs for our Egyptian citizen, especially in Sinai. And you can realize easily that the unemployment rate, despite the fact we have a lot of global issues, the pandemic, and after the pandemic we faced the Ukrainian and Russian war, which has negatively impacted all huge economies. You can realize easily that the inflation rate, one of the most strong economies, USA, reached to 9%. This is the highest inflation rate from 40 years, since 40 years ago. Despite this fact, we have a solid background, and we are investing in infrastructure, and we are trying to bring FDI. And one of the most important things to bring FDI, the government has two actually ambitious plans, which is to increase non-petroleum exports to reach $100 billion, in addition to decreasing our share, the government share, in a lot of public companies. Which is one of the most important things, to bring $100 billion FDI in 4 years. You can imagine what's sorry, for 40 billion, something like that. You can imagine what's going $40 billion in 4 years, with average run rate 10 billion. Okay, those things which will reflect on the industrial part, in addition to one of the most important, the last one, which is the service part. You know, as you know, and our audience, the competition nowadays, it's not in terms of agriculture only, industrial only, but service. The highest added value, which is the service part, as you know. I can do for you a service, and my margin will be quite high.
Which also includes tourism, right?
For sure. For that reason, the government is working in a different way with harmony, which is reflected on our on Sinai, which is, you can realize easily that the unemployment rate decreased, the health enhanced, and the health service enhanced a lot, and a lot of hospitals opened, and a lot of care centers. In addition to the infrastructure, you can realize easily a lot of, like, more than five tunnels opened, and a lot of things, and the huge investments. This is positively reflected that we bring it FDI in such part, in this part of our country. And those things reflected on our GDP growth positively. We have to best utilize every part of our country to enhance our GDP, because nowadays, you know, as you know, and our audience, we have a global fierce competition in terms of products, in terms that the entire world is a small village, as you know, and our audience.
Well, Dr. Roshdy, you've mentioned, I mean, if we're talking about the financing of the development strategy for the Sinai Peninsula, you've mentioned the FDI, the foreign direct investments, and we also have our public sector, and we also have our local private sector. Now, who should carry, or who should have a bigger share of the financing process? Should we depend more on FDIs, or should we depend more on our public sector or our local private sector keeping in mind the strategic and sensitive geographical location of Sinai Peninsula, who should we really focus more on pushing into financing the development strategy for Sinai?
Actually, it is a smart question.
Mm-hmm.
You can realize easily that for the first time that all sectors are working with a harmony.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes to top of my mind when you are telling me which is the most important part in this equation.
Yeah.
I believe each one has its own role, but the weight will be different. If you can realize easily a lot of we are not inventing the wheel. Let me say it loudly, we are not inventing the wheel. We can go for developed countries and so and say what happened? What happened? You can realize easily that the government main role is to facilitate. Is to facilitate the infrastructure, to facilitate lands, to facilitate a lot of things, and to make the process, to speed up the process. Like what happened nowadays in GAFI, General Authority for Investments, you can find one window to finalize everything. That's one of the most important things. Okay. In addition to giving incentive, tax incentive, waiver, and doing and giving working on the infrastructure, electricity, lands, a lot of things, roads. Those are the most important things. If we took the other parts of the equation, which thank you that you mentioned, the local private sector or the local private sector or the international investor that coming. For the local private sector, as you know, and our audience, this is a great opportunity. If we can count on what's happening and the mega project that the government is doing it nowadays, this is a great opportunity. We have in business science what we are calling it SWOT analysis. Simply what SWOT analysis? Sorry. If you have a strength on something, you have to focus and to benefit from this strength. And the weak points, you have to strengthen it more and more and to work on it. And the threats, you have to create from threats opportunities. For example, we had a global threat, which is the pandemic.
Yes.
This is a threat, actually. You can realize easily what's the opportunity from this. The entire world changed to be digitalized.
Yes.
This is how we can see things and work on it. Nowadays, we have a great opportunities in Sinai, which is, if we did this SWOT analysis, the geographic location, which is one of our strengths, the main labor.
Yes.
We have a great main labor. What currently the government and the presidential leadership is trying to provide the appropriate training and education to capitalize on this. The second thing, which is the health of our nation, those will be a good man labor to be delivered for the investor. In addition to, we have a lot of resources. We have mining, we have oil, we have a lot of things. If we combined all those things and we capitalized on them, what will happen? We will be one of the most strategic countries in Africa and in the globe, because we have a lot of things, location, in addition to resources, natural resources, human beings, a lot of things, and actually a strategic relationship with our neighbors.
Yes.
Those are the main pillar to have a great economy and will positively reflect on the entire country.
Yes, definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has actually directed billions of dollars for the sake of development of the Sinai Peninsula. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Egypt's political leadership has directed special attention to achieving economic and social development in living standards in the Sinai Peninsula and governorates of Upper Egypt. This comes within the framework of a coherent and integrated development program by addressing existing development gaps and advancing development efforts in accordance with the components, characteristics and priorities of each region. Investments are directed to the governorates of northern and southern Sinai. Total government investment plan directed for the development of the governorate during the fiscal year amounts to about 5 billion Egyptian pounds, with the public treasury finances about 80% of it. Meanwhile, the agricultural and land reclamation sector accounts for the largest percentage of the total government investments directed to North Sinai governorate at 28%, followed by the construction and building sector at 22.6%. Other services at 12.8%, then sanitation, water and education at 8.1%, 7.9% and 7.6% respectively. The total government investments directed for the development of South Sinai Governorate amount to about 2.2 billion pounds, and the public treasury finances are financing 45.2% of it. The education sector has acquired the largest percentage of total investments at about 32.4%, followed by other services at 19.2%. Also, a number of airports have been developed, including Sharm el-Sheikh, Harish and St. Catherine airports. Harish Port is now under a 4 billion pound development process, with development works including setting up quays at a length of 1,165 kilometers. The head of the engineering authority said 51 projects were being carried out in the housing domain as well. New Ismailia with a capacity of 33,000 residential units, and Salem Misr with a capacity of 4,400 units.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Dr. Roshdy. Now, sir, you've mentioned three main axes of development in Sinai, the agricultural one, the industrial one, and the service one. Now, you've shed light on the agricultural one, the industrial one. Now, does that only include the Suez Canal economic zones, or are we also looking at different governorates and different parts of Sinai where some localization of industry needs to take place there?
Actually, we are counting on all our resources, and we are counting on our geographic location, and we are counting on our main labor, in addition to a lot of things. What we are counting on nowadays to the infrastructure. We are investing a lot of money on mega projects, as you know. Part of it, Suez Canal. We have a great and amazing location. We are linking Sinai. Location is the most strategic location. Can you imagine that you are one small city can link 3 continents, Africa, Asia and Europe, and a lot of trades we can call it, it's like a trade hub. We can call it like that, but we have to focus more and more on this strategic part to be the fruits of it. And nowadays, the government is investing in Suez Canal. You can realize easily the expansion, the mega projects, and I believe that we have a great ROI. What's ROI? Return on investments. When you are doing any business, in terms of, we can simplify to our audience easily. If you are doing a business, what you are calculating, the ROI, return on what you are paying. Nowadays, this same thing for government, for every entity. We are paying to get more and more. If you are paying £1, you are checking the return of this. Nowadays, this is how the country is managed. The country is managed to have a strategic projects which is reflect ROI, decreasing the unemployment rate. You can realize easily, as far as I recall, the unemployment rate reached to 13% in 2013, something like that. Nowadays, 13-14%, something like that. Nowadays, it's near 7.5%, despite the fact that the global unemployment rate is increasing due to the pandemic, due to the Ukrainian and Russian war, and a lot of organizations are cutting costs globally. But in Egypt, it's totally different. We are expanding. We are doing, and this is, in my humble opinion, this is the most strategic and the most smart decision to have to invest in infrastructure. This will help us to bring more FDI, to create job opportunities, to develop our countries, to enhance our GDP structure, and in my humble opinion, our country, our economy will be one of they are calling it tiger economies. You know that why they are calling tiger? When the tiger is running to get his victim, he is running quite fast, and our economy one day will enhance and grow fastly.
Yes.
And we are doing this infrastructure to go for the race.
Well, Dr. Roshdy, a lot of economic analysts and experts are saying, well, now is the time for small and medium enterprises and startups and entrepreneurship. And it's really the way forward. And Egypt has been really focusing on entrepreneurs and startups and SMEs. But some people are saying, well, the development in Sinai, it's really based on big projects, mega national projects, renewable energy, electricity, fisheries, agriculture, real estate, the grand transfiguration on the land of peace. I mean, many, many things. And they're saying, well, maybe now is not the best time for SMEs and startups to be involved within big-scale projects for the development of Sinai. And others are saying, well, no, now is the time to start and really plant the seeds for SMEs at the time when the whole region is going through its own development strategy. Is it the right time, or should SMEs and entrepreneurs wait a little bit up until the basic infrastructure and the national mega projects start getting on its feet?
Actually, it's a great question. I would love to reply with one of the most familiar quotes, which is, don't put all eggs in one basket. Actually, how we can do this, despite the fact that the government, the presidential leadership, is working on mega projects, this is a crucial, in my humble opinion, to have the infrastructure to count on this. How can you request small enterprise or entrepreneur, for example, to do his project without infrastructure? Tell me, without having energy. How can that? If you have a mega project, if I'm an entrepreneur or if I'm a small or medium company, what I shall do? I will serve. I will
Yes.
give you. Do you know the supply, the supply chain? I will give you what do you need, actually. And nowadays, the government is working in parallel, small and medium enterprises, in addition to the mega projects. The small and medium enterprises serving actually the mega projects, and they give them the required supply chain. You can realize easily that the government did a lot of initiatives for SMEs and for microfinance actually to enhance our GDP. And what I started to tell you when I'm applying for this question, to don't put all the eggs in one basket actually. Why? If you have one or two mega projects or two main investors, if one of them defaulted, what will happen? We will lose like 50% of our economy. But if we have a lot of companies or a lot of investors, if one defaulted, nothing will happen. The organic change, what will happen? Someone will enter and someone will default. This is normal. Nowadays, the government is working in parallel to give priority for mega projects and at the same time for SMEs. They did a lot of initiatives, starting the CBE initiative for small and medium enterprises. They are financing them with low income, with low interest rate to push the economic wheel. And this initiative transferred to Ministry of Finance to give small and medium enterprises low interest rate actually to finance the mega projects. And nowadays you can bear the fruits of this in terms of the unemployment rate that decreased. We have a huge manpower, you know, and we are calling, the globe is calling Egypt and African continent youth continent or youth country for Egypt. Why? Because the majority of the pyramid of age, which is youth, and we are counting on this. And if you are financing and empowering the youth, you are building the new republic in a different way and a solid economy.
Yes. Sir, now, you've mentioned a lot of the efforts exerted by the government and the current administration in all different axes in development, and Sinai also about the biggest asset, the citizens, the human capital in Sinai Peninsula, and the administration has gone through exerted a lot of efforts and gone through many distances to include and give opportunities and job opportunities for the residents of Sinai Peninsula who have been marginalized over many years. Now, it is a big task, the development of Sinai, and there will be many challenges and obstacles in the development of the peninsula. What sort of obstacles would you guess would lay ahead on the road for the development of Sinai?
One of the main challenges to change the mindset of people, to let them engage with the strategic vision of the government and the country to achieve our vision. One of them, to let them simply know what is our strategic objective and let them engage it. For example, if we figure out how to educate the Egyptian citizen or Sinai citizen, that what they are doing in terms of working and enhancing their skills, this is possibly reflect on our GDP and their income. And let's say it simply, it should be win-win situation. If you learn more and enhance your education level, and at the same time the government bring FDI and foreigner investors and local investors to this part of our country, which is Sinai, what will happen? This will reflect on your income. By this way, you let it win-win situation. We are achieving our strategic vision. At the same time, my goal as an Egyptian citizen, which aligned with the government. And this is one of the most important things, to change the mindset. What you are doing is quite important, despite the fact if you are moving small things, this positively reflect on our income. This is a challenge.
Yes.
This is a challenge. Why we are doing factories, why we are using renewable energy. This is not just a trendy thing. We are saving a lot of money. We are saving our country to our inheritance, actually, to our children.
Yes.
We are saving it. And this will sustain to have the Egypt, the country that we would love to see it.
Yes. Well, one of the major developments taking place also, the developments taking place within the transportation sector. Now, you've mentioned many tunnels have been dug, a lot of high-speed electrical trains, which really connects not just Sinai to the rest of the country, but also it really connects the transfer of products and goods from Sinai Peninsula to Greater Cairo and the rest of the governorates, which has been quite unfortunate that a lot of, for instance, our fisheries and our seafood products, they don't make it from the Red Sea to the other side of the country. But with all the developments taking place, all the roads, the tunnels, the railways, it will also affect the economy within the whole or the rest of the Republic. How integral is it, the development in terms of the transportation sector of Sinai Peninsula, connecting it to the rest of the country?
Actually, this is one of the most important things, in my humble opinion. If you are linking the Sinai with the entire country, what will happen? You are increasing the loyalty. You are letting the Sinai residents have the same strategic goal for the entire country, and this is positively reflected on the GDP. Or the activities, the commercial activities, and you play it win-win situation. When we are doing the infrastructure, we are linking Sinai to the entire country.
Yes.
What will happen? I can easily sell my commodity, especially Sinai, one of the most important cities that famous with handmade things, fishing, as you said. We have a lot of resources, a lot of things, and we are exporting a lot of commodities through this strategic location, and it can be easily a trade hub because, you know, as Suez Canal is one of the most important parts that link the three continents, as we said previously, Europe, Asia, and Africa. And in addition to this, there are a lot of mega projects, not just only the transportation, the housing projects, the health projects, road, bridges and tunnels, construction and development, seaports, education construction project, water supply. That's one of the most important things. And as you mentioned in your report, actually, this is one of the most important requests for the Sinai residents to focus, and the government is giving for it a priority in addition to food security projects, improvement public service projects, sanitation projects, and one of the most important things that Suez Canal Zone projects.
Yes.
Free economic zone. We have a lot of mega projects, and this one, I believe it's like a diamond in our country. You can realize easily.
And you've also mentioned the health sector, and now Egypt has embarked on implementing a national health insurance system, and it actually started off in the governorate of Port Said. Now, and obviously all the work that is being done within the health services as part of the Decent Life initiative, how important as well do you feel, because you've mentioned the two main fields or two main areas that need the development, that are required for the development of the citizen, is the education and the health, and the health insurance system, and the health services that are provided specifically started off in Sinai Peninsula.
I believe this is one of the most, one of the hottest topic and that the government is giving for priority nowadays, which is the health. I believe we have an ambitious plan to have NHS, National Health System, unified. We are not, as I told you and our audience, we are not inventing the wheel. If you would like to be one of the most important countries and one day will be one of the developed countries, what happened? They focused on education and the health. Education through universities and giving technical part for the students, and in addition to link what acquired in the market with the education, and the other part, which is the health.
Yes.
To have one national health system for all the for entire Egyptian people or Egyptian citizen, and this positively will reflect on us, and this is how we are building the main pillar to build our country in a proper way and to be one of the best countries soon.
Yes, hopefully so. Ladies and gentlemen, the 41st anniversary of the liberation of Sinai, a very important and really special part of our country, at the peninsula of Sinai, in our hearts and in Egypt's modern history. A lot of development efforts that are underway for such an important place, that we have sacrificed many, many lives and many years to liberate, and it is our own now. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Mohamed Roshdy, the economic and banking expert and the lecturer at Cairo University. Dr. Roshdy, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, and good evening for you and our audience.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.